CBS 46 News presents Public Affairs on Peach.
Good morning and thank you for watching Public Affairs on Peach. I'm your host, Adam Murphy, and today we're going to be talking about proposed legislation that will be taken up in next year's legislative session. But first, we want to tell you one of the reasons a bill has been proposed that is going to be discussed today. A special education teacher at Harper Archer Middle School in Atlanta captured these images of paraprofessionals in her classroom allegedly abusing children with extreme disabilities, children who can't even communicate. One of the teachers was fired, the other was moved to another school. The teacher who captured these disturbing images says she was forced to get evidence after several complaints were made to the principal and ignored. Now, cases like that are why Clayton County State Representative Valencia Stovall has introduced House Bill 614, also known as the Landon Dunson Act. Thank you for being on the program. We certainly appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
This is a very important topic and very disturbing at the same time based on what we just saw. So tell me about your legislation, House Bill 614. What's it all about?
Well, actually, we authorized the Georgia Department of Education to operate a pilot program dealing with video cameras in the classrooms of special needs students.
What motivated you to introduce something like this?
I actually met Mrs. Dunson about 3 years ago at a parent summit, and we talked very briefly about some things that had happened with her son. There was alleged abuse that had happened, and after talking with her, I began to research to see if we had any legislation in Georgia currently that dealt with video cameras in the classroom, specifically with dealing with our special needs students.
And how common would you say this problem is right now in our state?
It's very, very common. In the beginning, I didn't, that actually was the first time me hearing about it when I was talking to Mrs. Dunson. And then afterwards, once I started investigating, and then we started being able to realize that there are a lot of different incidents that have come up dealing with special needs students.
So, Representative Stovall, I understand that you introduced similar legislation last session. What happened to it?
Because it was towards the end of the legislative session, it's in the education committee, and so that's one of the reasons we're out now trying to make sure that we're educating the public, more specifically our parents and educators, about the importance of this legislation passing and how significant it will be. We'll actually be the second state in the United States to have a video camera specific legislation.
What are some of your colleagues, per se in the State House of Representatives, saying about it? Because I know you've been working with them, talking about this and trying to push this through. What are they saying to you?
With it being a bipartisan bill, I've gotten very good feedback from my colleagues. Actually, even when I approached some of them to be co-sponsors on the bill, they were very excited about it and actually didn't even realize that we didn't have legislation in place. There was no legislation that says you can have video cameras, and then there were none that said that you could not.
Now, on the contrary, there are going to be some people that are obviously going to be opposed because they don't like the idea of cameras being intrusive, if you will, in the classroom. And here we go, a step further, more cameras, now in a classroom. What do you say to those people?
Well, one thing is that at the end of the day, we have a responsibility here in the state to protect our vulnerable children. And a lot of them cannot speak for themselves, and so we have to make sure that they are in a safe environment and that the parents are feeling safe, that when they're no longer with their children and they're dropping them off, that they are safe. So it's not anything where it would be against someone, but we're trying to protect our children, and we want everyone to feel comfortable. And it also help even the educators to feel comfortable as well.
And it's my understanding there are already cameras in many places at schools, probably at the entryway, maybe in the front office, right, in some hallways, things like that. I don't know if that's part of your argument that we already have them now for safety and security reasons as well.
Yes, there are cameras throughout our Georgia schools here. So it's not anything new. It's just now we're moving them inside of the classroom specifically for our special needs students.
Would it be just in those classrooms for special needs students?
Yes.
Okay, so not every classroom, just the special needs classrooms at this point, right?
Correct.
And so you would like to see this in all schools throughout the entire state, I presume, or just a specific area where this may be more of a problem?
We would like to see it throughout the whole entire state. of Georgia. And because it's a pilot, it's not a mandate, unfunded mandate. It's actually an option for our local school district or even an individual school that would like to see those cameras placed in those classrooms.
And what would this do for this problem, in your opinion, to have those cameras there? What does it do?
I think that it would bring a lot of relief, especially to our parents. And it also will bring a sense of relief also to the educators who may have been falsely accused as well. And, and on the bottom end, or tail end of it, it will also help with being able to identify resources that might be needed in certain of those certain classes that normally the administrator might not be aware of because they would not be able to physically be able to see it.
Do you have support at this point from educators, those specific who work with these young students that have challenges?
All the ones that I have spoken with are in support of it, because that's one of the things I want to make sure that happened when I first thought about introducing the bill. So we sat down and talked with educators on both ends and just kind of understand what their viewpoint was about the legislation before we actually even put it into the hopper.
Representative Valencia Stovall from the state of Georgia talking about House Bill 614, and do you feel pretty confident that this bill will move through the session next year?
Yes, I do.
And you have widespread support?
Yes, I have widespread.
Have you talked to the governor?
Yes, I have.
And what is the governor saying?
Well, I won't say exactly what he's saying, but we have wide support
okay.
for the legislation.
So you feel very confident moving forward. This is a very interesting piece of legislation. We will definitely monitor it in this next legislative session to see where it goes. We have much more, obviously, throughout this half hour. As I said, we've been talking about House Bill 614, the Landon Dunson Act. And when Public Affairs on Peach returns, we will talk to Landon Dunson's mother. It's an interview you definitely want to come back and see right here on the show after the break.